Just not a very good day for Colin Strickland in general. You mentioned a lot of the good reasons why he probably was in a sour mood. He was probably feeling embarrassed. He had to testify about really painful memories about two women that were very close to him in his life. But obviously that doesn't give anyone an excuse to be violent with other people, particularly photographers who are out there just doing their jobs. It's not just Colin Strickland that these photographers are focusing on, right? Every single time Mo Wilson's family comes into the courtroom, Kaitlin Armstrong's family comes into the courtroom, the cameras are rolling. We don't have cameras in the courtroom, and so these photographers are doing their job, which is capturing the most important people in this case. And when it came to Colin Strickland, we now know that this is actually his third violent outburst. There was one that happened on Friday that we didn't even realize until we were watching video back, where he actually pushed another photographer's camera to the ground. But then again today, during the lunch break, we saw it again. This one really captured on video, caught everyone's attention, him actually grabbing the lens of a photographer's camera and shoving it to the ground. And then later on, after he was testifying, leaving the courthouse, he's being escorted by sheriff's deputies and other armed security. And he actually just goes out of his way to step and stomp on this photographer's foot. And actually, if you listen closely, you can hear that photographer actually scream out in pain. We have that full clip. Let's take a look together. Ouch! And I'm told that not just that photographer, but several other photographers all went right back into the courthouse, filled out witness statements, because obviously this is unacceptable behavior when it comes to someone that's so high profile in this case, and he just can't be doing that kind of thing. So we're going to see if there's any sort of penalty. I've talked to other legal experts. They say, make no mistake about it, the jury's going to hear about this. And the big question is whether or not the defense actually brings this up later on in the trial and paints a picture of him being a violent guy.
I mean, that's assault. You can't do that. You can't put your hands or feet on other people who are keeping their distance. And you may not like it, but he's not the defendant here. And if it's stressful for him, I get it. I wouldn't want to be in his position. His live-in girlfriend is on the stand for murdering a person he liked a lot and once dated. I get it. It's an awful position to be in, but nobody should be assaulting anyone. So let's talk a little bit about the stuff that he had to go through on the stand. What put him in this mood to start with? Because it's pretty intense stuff that he had to deal with on the stand. So walk me through the highlights.
Yeah, this morning we really focused in on text messages that were exchanged between him and Mo Wilson, and then him and Kaitlin Armstrong. And so Colin Strickland is being asked to read these out loud for the jury and explain sort of what the text messages mean and what the extra context is. And he just really did not look like he was enjoying that process. You know, again, his eyes were closed. Very often he was rubbing his temple or just, you know, keeping his head bowed. But they really showed a lot, not only sort of the type of relationship that he had with Mo Wilson, which I admit was mostly professional. They talked a lot about bikes, but of course there was correspondence about, where are you now? Where have you made it to California? Or I'm coming to Austin, Texas. And so there was a lot of that back and forth. But even beyond that, it showed the sense of jealousy that Kaitlin Armstrong had, particularly in her text to him, you know, saying things like, you know better than to be hanging out with her at a popular cycling cafe here in Austin, or send my love to Mo was a different text message that she had sent to him after he had posted an Instagram video with Mo Wilson in the background. Keep in mind that video had dozens of other people, but Kaitlin Armstrong apparently picked out Mo in the background of the video and sent what Colin Strickland says was a very passive-aggressive text about it. So we saw all of that different text message exchange. And then you mentioned something that was obviously eye-opening, which was actually having those two guns that Colin Strickland had purchased with Kaitlin Armstrong wheeled into the courtroom. Colin was asked to put on surgical gloves, which he did. He had to open up these envelopes that had magazines of ammunition, and it had obviously the two pistols, two 9mm pistols, which prosecutors say one of those was used to murder Mo Wilson. And, you know, it's just very dramatic when you see him put on the gloves and hold up the gun for the jury to see. They asked him to load a magazine. They asked him to undo the lock that keeps the weapon from firing. So Colin Strickland did a lot today, and he was not very pleasant through most of it.
I can imagine you're basically being told, handle that weapon and show the court how good you are with it, AKA you might have been the killer. I mean, I can see how that would be so offensive. But also, it's upsetting for him that he had to admit that it was his idea to buy those guns. I mean, that's a big deal for Kaitlin Armstrong's defense, right? It's not Kaitlin saying, honey, let's go get some guns and let's put your name on them too for cover. Walk me through a little more about that conversation where he had to admit it was his idea.
Right. Well, he basically said at the time it was his philosophy that all women should have guns to protect themselves. Now, keep in mind, Kaitlin Armstrong did express several reasons why she might like to have a gun. She was nervous about Austin's homeless population at the time. She was nervous about going on bike rides by herself through Austin streets. But yes, it was Colin who ultimately at the time believed that his girlfriend should have a weapon. He was the one whose name is on that purchase receipt. If those guns are his purchases, and we looked at a receipt that showed it that much. So yes, defense making some really smart moves there, putting the pressure on him to admit that this was mostly his idea.
Hey, give me 20 seconds here. I'm out of time, but there was a moment in the courtroom where everybody gasped. What was it?
Yeah, that was an interesting moment because I believe it was the state who said, or they said, Colin, you know Kaitlin Armstrong very well, don't you? And he paused and he said, no, I don't. Obviously, that is a big moment for the courtroom to hear. But obviously, you know, when you put yourself in his shoes, you think you know somebody, you date someone for over 2 years, then you find out suddenly that she's accused of killing another woman that you've had a professional relationship with, and at one point a romantic relationship, and all of a sudden your mind is blown. You feel like you don't know that person anymore. Yeah. So it was definitely a dramatic moment in the courtroom. Everyone seized on that.
Alex Caprariello, our eyes and ears, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.